All right, we're here with the first video of the day. We're going to do an honest take on the second presidential debate, and boy, was it quite a doozy. And hey, it was actually a debate for once. There were a lot of interruptions, mostly from Kristen Welker to Trump. She probably interrupted Biden, I think, once, but, you know, she only raised her hand just to be like, oh, you got to hurry up, sir. And then that was it. That was the only one time that happened. But, boy, Trump would, you know, talk for about 10, 15 seconds. She'd be like, all right, President, you're done. All right, you're done. Okay, let's move on. Okay, come on. It's like, shut up and let him finish. And then, like, he would, like, finish a sentence, and then she'd be like, okay, we're going to move on. It's like, you didn't give him enough time. You didn't let him finish. Like, and Trump's just like, I'm not going to have any of that. I'm just going to keep going. Why would I stop for you? I'm not going to, because you're completely biased on this. You keep interrupting me. You keep stopping me early. And it's like, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd finish my statement at that point. So we'll start going over it from here. The first subject was, you know, on COVID, and Biden pretty much blames Trump for the COVID pandemic, even though, you know, it came from China. Trump did as best as he could with, you know, the power that he has. He doesn't have supreme control over the entire government. He doesn't have supreme control over the entire country. That's what they see. That's what they're like trying to claim. It's like, this is all your fault because you're the one in control. You're in charge. You have all supreme control. It's like, no, the executive branch doesn't really have that much power. And he was leaving most of it up to the states, which is what should be happening. And a lot of these blue states, Joe, failed miserably. I know, because I live in one of them. But I'll get into that a little bit more. Trump is using facts at this point to counter Biden. He stopped travel from China in January, while him and Pelosi were telling people to go out and not worry about it. Yeah, I mean, I believe Joe was saying that in March. Pelosi was trying to get people to go out in February to Chinatown. That was like late February. Biden says 200,000 people more will die by the end of the year. Also cites only 1,000 people are dying a day. With that math, you'd only reach like 72,000. We're 72 days away from the end of the year. And that was from yesterday. So from the debate, we were 72 days away from the end of the year. With only 1,000 a day, and you obviously don't want more than that, you're only getting 72,000. We're at 220. So it'd only get up to 300, not 400. So I actually did some of the math here because apparently Joe Biden can't do math. In order to reach that 400,000 you would need, because he wanted it to be 400,000, but he was saying 200,000, which you would then need somewhere around like, what, 2,750, 2,800 deaths a day from the election day, from yesterday until the end of the year. 2,800 to 2,700, 2,800 would need to die in order to get those numbers. That is grossly exaggerated, and I'm sorry, but if anyone just does any bit of math on this, they would be dumbfounded that even Biden would say any of that. So as you can see here, 72,000. Why don't you let me click on it? 72,000 would be, you know, 72 days with 1,000 deaths. That's the average that we're doing right now. Now, we obviously want to get that down, and we don't want that 72,000. If we can get that to 60, 50,000, or even way less than that, then yes, that's incredibly good. I'm sorry, Joe, but we don't want to be seeing 2,600, 2,700, 2,800 deaths per day. No, actually, by the time you would actually get up to that point, you would then start needing more like 3,000, 3,500 deaths per day, closer to 4,000 as you start getting even then closer. Like, if you get to the end of November and you're still at 1K, okay, so you raised it, it got raised by, say, about 30,000, but then you would still need, I don't know, like 3,500 deaths per day then at that point. I'm sorry, just like a little bit of basic math is all you need to discredit Joe at this point. It's like, yeah, we're at, I mean, he says 200K, but we're at like 220. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do 180,000 instead of the 200,000 that Biden was saying was going to happen by the end of the year. He's like, this is going to happen. We're going to lose 200,000 more people. And it's like, what kind of math are you doing, dude? We don't need over 3,000 people dead per day. And I started looking it up. I was like, how many deaths? What was the highest death rate per day? And the most I was able to find was 1,800. 1,800. Not even close to what you would need. The highest that we've seen is still not even close to what you would need per day in order to get to the 400,000. It's dumbfounded. And then I read an article saying, oh yeah, it'll get to 600,000 by February. And it's like, what? How is it raising 200,000 then every 2 months at that point? That is just absurdity. Do these Democrats and everything just want people to die? Are they wishing that this happens? Because this is disgusting at that point then. I'm sorry, Joe, but because of your math, it makes you just look like, one, an idiot, two, completely sick and evil, because you're now wishing more people are dying at that point. You want those people to die, I guess, just to try to then, blame Trump? All right, well, let's move on to the second subject. Then it goes on to, Iran and Russia interfering in the election. We got Biden says any country would pay a price for interfering, says they are interfering with U.S. sovereignty while he was interfering in Ukraine's affairs. I mean, the quid pro quo, everything. He was literally interfering, not necessarily in an election, but he was interfering in a different country's affairs. Why? Well, because his own son was being prosecuted by him. We got two then. Biden claims Trump is a Putin puppet. We know, though, Russia paid $2,000 in ads in the 2016 election. I mean, it's like, what kind of disinformation, what did they really do in order to sway our election? Nothing. We know that now. We know it's just been a nothing burger. And Biden is just going to go, Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Trump says Biden got $3.5 million from Russian oligarchs and all the money laundering. Yeah, he started bringing up Russia, basically just the Russian oligarchs, actually. He only brought them up. And then Biden was like, oh, you're telling me about taking all this money from China. And it's like, wait, I don't think Trump actually said China in his last remarks. So did Biden actually just admit to taking then money from China, possibly? Because I don't believe that Trump actually then said China in his last remark. Might have to go back into that and just try to make sure, but I'll do that later. I was pretty sure when I was watching it that I didn't hear Trump say that the money came. I just heard the $3.5 million from the Russian mayor, or the wife of the ex-Russian mayor, whatever. And that was it. I didn't actually hear anything about China in that last statement. And then Trump's just like, I didn't take any money from China. And there's no way I take money from China. And it's like, you didn't mention China. You mentioned Russia. Trump says Biden was in office. He let Russia take over a section of Ukraine. There was a submarine base. I mean, this is some information I didn't really know. And that was when Biden was in office. I mean, that's Biden. That's Obama. You got to take some responsibility there, then, Biden. Biden says he has not taken a penny from any foreign business or country, tries to say all these countries are giving Trump bribes and cash, and then goes on about Trump's taxes, which is another nothing burger. It's all crap. Trump says, and then they try to go into Trump's taxes a bit. Trump says he prepaid tens of millions, says he doesn't make money from all these countries, and that Biden does, mentions the emails, and the big guy cut. And we know at this point that Joe Biden is the big guy. Tony Bobulinski came out and said it. Then we got Biden still tries to get Trump to just release them, but Trump said he can't while it's being audited by the IRS. The IRS have pretty much just been against him. He's been calling them, pretty much evil, and they're against him, and they've been trying to go after him for just whatever and anything. I don't know. Trump claims the government spent $48 million to go over Trump's entire life. Did we really need $48 million of taxpayer money to go over Trump's entire life? No, but they did it anyways because they don't care about taxpayers or citizens or any people that they're, elected to help. As soon as Trump really gets into as soon as Trump really gets, as soon as Trump really kind of gets into a statement, sometimes Welker will just shut him down completely. But Trump really wasn't having it. He would just continue going. I have some of those kind of throughout, so you can kind of see. And eventually, she did kind of stop interrupting him about 2/3 through. But she wouldn't do it for Biden. She would just let Biden go and go and go, and then he would just start going off about something I don't even know sometimes. But we'll get into some of those because those were crazy. Those are a little bit later. I'm talking about like the Abraham Lincoln stuff, and that one was funny as hell. I couldn't help laugh. I was like, he did not just say that. I was dumbfounded. Biden said, where was we? Biden says they claim he did something wrong with Ukraine and that he actually didn't, but there is video proof of his quid pro quo. We have that out, that he literally got that prosecutor fired, and he withheld federal funding to Ukraine. Unless that prosecutor got fired. That's a quid pro quo. Sorry, Joe, but there's video proof of it. There is evidence. Trump has to keep stopping Welker's interruptions. Yeah, he's just going, I'm going to keep going. Shut up, Welker, essentially. Welker knows Biden can't win this section, so try it. Section, so tries to move the questions forward quickly. Yeah, she's like, I need to keep moving forward. I got to keep going. Come on, we got to go, 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 go. And it's only when Trump started to talk. It's only when Trump talked. Trump's China bank account says it was opened in 2013, closed in 2015. He believes. Apparently, there's some evidence that he had taken out money in 2017, but I don't think any of that was really verified yet, so we don't really know. They're just trying to claim that Trump had a bank account in China. Okay, so he had some business dealings. He probably had a building there, and he had the bank account for a couple of years and then just left. Okay. Who cares? Welker's getting annoying with her interruptions. Let the president finish. She tries to insert herself after about 15 seconds. Seriously, she would just let Biden go on for like 30, 40 seconds at times, like for his rebuttal. And it's like, you're not going to interrupt him. You're not going to interrupt him. Why are you only giving Trump like 10 seconds and you're not giving any, you're just letting Biden go off and off and on. Then we got Biden has to go against China and be harsh. He had to criticize China as much as he can because he's being claimed that he was taking money from China through a proxy, which was his son. Welker tried to move forward and not let Trump answer back on that, but he wasn't having any of it. And I was like, Welker seriously needs to just stop interrupting. It was getting super annoying at this point. And this is only like 30 minutes into the debate. Trump says China paid $28 billion and used the cash to help farmers. It was kind of just what China owed us, and so he used that money to help farmers. That's what he said. Biden was like, no, it didn't happen. It's like, well, how do you know? You're just claiming that. That's all. But, I mean, didn't Trump actually do help farmers? I'm pretty sure he helped farmers. Biden tries to play to the middle class and does that dumb pointing at the camera. He was about to say a number of what a middle-class person will make, but I don't think he actually knows what any middle-class person, like any reasonable citizen, what their average income is. And he had to stop himself and then just be like, actually, I don't really know the number. He didn't really say that, but you could tell that he was like, oh, God, I don't actually know the number, so I need to say something completely different. So he just started changing his wording because he doesn't really know how much an average citizen makes. And yeah, he doesn't. Because he takes millions from foreign companies, book deals, whatever. And he doesn't know anything about, he's probably so out of touch at this point. He doesn't know what the average citizen makes. Biden keeps saying North Korea are thugs, but didn't really answer the question. Let's see. Welker won't let Trump answer, but Trump is not having any of it still. Welker only says 10 seconds or whatever, or, whatever time, 15, 20, whatever she gives him, to only Trump. Biden is allowed to continue as long as possible. Not once has she said Biden only has 10 seconds and stops him for continuing longer than he should. Yeah, she would just go off, or he would just go off, and she literally wouldn't just be like, all right, Vice President, what are you going to say to that? Or she would try to move on at times, but then Biden would be like, oh, I want to answer that, and then she'd just let him answer and keep going. She wouldn't interrupt him or try to get him to stop or move on or anything. It was really, really annoying. Let's see, then we're over here. I think we were getting into healthcare then. Trump wants to terminate Obamacare, but people with pre-existing conditions are still okay. So I'm down with Obamacare getting out of there. It's trash. The premiums have risen to such a degree, and it was mandatory at the time and during the Obama era. So we were forcing people to have this health care that they couldn't afford. They couldn't afford the private, then they weren't going to afford Obamacare. I'm going to tell you that right now. Biden says he will change Obamacare to Biden Care, mandating people who don't have insurance. And what if they can't pay any of the premium, Joe? You're basically forcing people to go back into this government subsidized health care that's going to be crap. The premiums are going to rise to such a degree like they did during the Obama era. And people aren't going to be able to afford it. And then it's going to be mandatory. And they're not going to pay their bills. Do you really think they're going to be able to pay for that health insurance that you are now forcing onto them? No. How about you help make private health care more affordable as well? That could be very beneficial. Welker tried to stop Biden, and he says he still has a few more minutes when he was only allowed 2. So this is the one time I think she actually interrupted him because he was starting to go on. He's like, oh, yeah, I still got a couple more minutes. It's like, yeah, okay. No, you really don't, and you should shut up, Biden, because obviously your 2 minutes are up. Biden claims that we can choose, but if we can't afford the private, we are then forced to have a Biden Care. And how would people then be able to pay for that? If they can't pay for the private, even at the lowest possible private, how are they then going to be able to pay for this Biden Care or Obamacare, whatever? If they can't afford it at all, they're not going to afford any kind of health insurance. They just don't have the budget for it then. That's what you're not getting. Trump says Biden and his VP Kamala, along with Dems, will try to socialize healthcare. Biden claims that Social Security is going to be gone by 2023, but I was pretty sure under Trump that we've had the best Social Security yet. And I distinctly remember under Obama, people kept going, oh, I'm losing my Social Security. It's all going away. It's all going away. And this is under Obama. So we were losing our Social Security under Obama. People weren't even then starting a Social Security because it wasn't, you couldn't. You pretty much couldn't under Obama. And that's probably going to end up happening again under Biden. Then it goes into the stimulus bill a bit. Trump blames Nancy Pelosi, which is pretty much true. She even said she hasn't and won't talk to the president. Pelosi keeps coming out and just trying to be like, oh, the president's got to do something and get these Republicans to get the coronavirus bill going. It's like, Nancy, how about you start working with them? How about you just start negotiating and just start being not a witch? Welker seems to think Trump can just pass bills all willy-nilly at this point. She's like, well, why don't you just pass the stimulus bill? Why don't you just do all these laws and pass all these things? It's like, do you not realize the amount of power that the executive branch actually has? Because he can't just do that. Otherwise, then you actually get an authoritarian. And you don't want that. Well, maybe they do. Then we go into the economy. Biden claims that Trump wants blue states to fail and go bankrupt. I live in one of those states mentioned, and yeah, I mean, I agree. The governor here and local politicians have pretty much just crapped on all of us. They don't care about they really don't care about anything. I'm pretty sure our governor has just gone on multiple vacations since this pandemic, and it's like, why are you going on vacation? People are suffering. All these lockdowns are destroying all these small businesses. We have crime rate skyrocketing in Chicago. And then we got Mayor Lori Lightfoot just trying to put in harsher lockdowns. Trump says with minimum wage raise, small businesses will have to fire most of their employees, which Biden interrupts and claims it's false. which it's actually true. If they raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, people have to then fire others to then compensate for that money. You literally will start losing 40 to 60% of jobs at that point, and then we're going to go into a depression. And maybe we can recover from that, but it will take a very amount of time. You need a gradual raise from the minimum wage. So we started, what was it, like $8.50, $9? I don't know, raise it to 10, $10.50 or something, or whatever. Just raise it a little bit over the next 10 years or so. Get it to that $15. Get it to the point where everybody can actually make a decent living. But I'm sorry, but like a McDonald's worker shouldn't be making, like I said, $15 an hour. I'm fine with them making, 11, but not 15. Sorry. Then it goes to immigration. Welker interrupts Trump over the cages built under Obama at the border wall. And we have, there's proof that those cages were built during the Obama era. They were putting them in there, and then you got blue check marks then going, and Democrats just going, oh, they're separating all these kids. Biden will make 11 million illegal immigrants fast-tracked to becoming citizens. That's what he said. He said, all these dreamers and everything, we're just going to make them all citizens and everything. It's like, that's not going to help anybody, actually. Like, yeah, you can make them legal immigrants, but they still broke the law and came here illegally. You're basically just allowing them to just do whatever they want then. Trump says he had 8 years to do just that and never did, except cages. I mean, you guys, I'm sorry, but even if you're a vice president, you could still probably do more. You could talk with the president, you could talk with other people, you could still get stuff done. It's not like you have absolutely nothing, even though the media and over the years, it's been pretty much feeling like the vice president does absolutely nothing. Biden talked about the 500 plus kids without their parents, but claimed they came over with their parents and not coyotes. The truth is that they come with their parents and coyotes, and human trafficking then happens. They get kidnapped because of these coyotes. The parents can get killed and then kidnapped, or who knows what else, just gone. Who knows what happens in the desert. And so now I got to bring up, where is it? Here it is. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is. A lot of blue check marks then on Twitter don't know what a coyote is. Imagine calling the immigrant parents that bring their children to the United States for a better life coyotes. The level of xenophobia is sickening. I mean, the level of your stupidity is terrible because you obviously don't know what a coyote is. A simple Google search, or a DuckDuckGo, or a Bing, whatever search engine you want to use, and you'll figure out what a coyote is at the southern border. So a coyote is essentially just a smuggler for humans. They smuggle humans across the border, and that's it. And that's what happens to a lot of these kids. Like, their parents will send them with the coyotes, with these smugglers, and then they get into human trafficking, they get kidnapped, like all this crap. So who knows how many children have been put into slave labor, like, into, like, very bad human trafficking. I don't want to, like, really say it, but you know of the explicit nature. He says, I've seen a lot of coyotes here in SoCal, but I've never seen one carrying a kid. Well, then you're an idiot. Children are bought here by coyotes. WTF Donald Trump. I thought I was tripping when I heard that. And it's like, you guys are just idiots. Coyotes? Good Lord. Kids came over on coyotes to America. Am I missing something? Yes. Yes, you are. It says, did I hear from Brent Snamely? Did I hear this right? The children are brought here by lots of coyotes. Hot damn, coyotes are so much smarter and capable than I ever gave them credit for. I apologize for underestimating you. You guys, people are idiots because children are brought here by coyotes. Trump F off. And how did these coyotes get all these kids past the wall? These were brought by coyotes and drug leaders. You guys just don't know what a coyote then is. I'm sorry that your mental acuity to, do a simple Google search was lacking. So, I'm sorry. They're really idiots, and they don't know what a smuggler is, apparently, because that's the term they were used. They were calling them coyotes. That's the term for a smuggler and trying to bring people across the border. And then this other stuff here we got on the oil industry. We'll get into that in a second. All right, I think we're going into the last section now. That'll be the miscellaneous. Biden talked about institutional racism. Trump then counters with Biden's 1994 crime bill that hurt most black Americans and that Biden called them predators. Trump talks about reform for everything, essentially, which I wholeheartedly believe is severely needed. He talked about, the prison reform he did and a bunch of the reform that has been happening under his administration that has been greatly beneficial to many innocent lives that have fallen victim to Biden's 1994 crime bill. Biden says that Trump only commuted 20 people and his admin did over 1,000. That could be a good and a bad thing depending on who was commuted. We also know that a lot of serious offenders had gotten off under Obama. Terrorists even were commuted their sentence. So having over 1,000 isn't necessarily a good thing if you're commuting the sentence of, I don't know, serial rapists, serial killers, domestic terrorists, international terrorists. If you start commuting those kinds of people, then it's a pretty bad thing. Biden tries to claim he's got good character. Trump brings up his corruption. Biden says that it is Russian disinfo, but it was actually proven by DNA Ratcliffe that it's not Russian disinformation. It's been verified at this point that it is not Russian disinformation. Biden is straight lying to you. Biden at this point just said Abraham Lincoln is the most racist president in our modern history. My jaw dropped to the floor when I heard this. This was the most insane thing I've ever heard out of his mouth. Yeah, I guess, I did look into a bit more of Lincoln, and then some of his views were not the best, not necessarily the best, but he was actually, if you then read on, towards the end of his life, then that he was changing a lot of his ways, and a lot of letters and notes that a lot of his viewpoints changed over the years, and if we actually had him as, the president longer and he wasn't shot in the head, we could have seen that growth even more throughout his life. But, we didn't actually get that chance then. So then we're left with what we have. And yeah, there are some, questionable things. You're just like, okay, well, it's also the 1800s. And you're like, okay, it's a different time. We've come along. We've definitely come a long way since then. And to just say that Abraham Lincoln was the most racist president. And then Trump comes back and he's like, why did you just say Abraham Lincoln? He was like, well, you just claimed you're Abraham Lincoln. He's like, no, I didn't. And he didn't. He didn't say he was Abraham Lincoln. He just said, the black community hasn't been better off. The black community hasn't been. I'm trying to figure out how to quote it correctly. It was more just kind of like, since Abraham Lincoln, Trump has been the one to help the black community the most since Abraham Lincoln. I think that was pretty much the quote. And then he's just like, you're claiming you're Abraham Lincoln? It's like, no, I didn't claim I was Abraham Lincoln. What are you talking about, Joe? I was so lost at that point that when he said Abraham Lincoln is the most racist president in our modern history, I was like, dude, you've just lost everybody. I think you literally just lost almost everybody at that point. The dude signed the Emancipation Proclamation. They got slaves freed. I'm sorry, but even if some of his viewpoints were still a little questionable, but even in those notes, they were saying he was changing those viewpoints drastically over the coming years. And who's to say that all of those viewpoints that were questionable wouldn't be changed later? Because he obviously was trying to do good for black individuals by, just eliminating slavery in the United States. Biden answers Trump's question on why he didn't do anything in his 8 years as VP. Biden just says, Republicans had Congress. Everyone at that point is silent and dumbfounded by the answer, in which Welker goes, Okay, moving on, and tries to then come up with another question. I started cracking up to such an insane degree because that silence was perfect. He said that. He thought he was so smart going, Republicans had Congress. Okay. And? You couldn't do anything then? Is that why? Clarify maybe? I think people were literally waiting for him to clarify that. And he was just like, I'm done. It was like, what? Biden says climate change is an existential crisis, saying we only have 8 years before there's no return. I mean, I've only heard that about a dozen times over the last decade at this point. We only got like 12 years. We got 10 years. Now we only have 8 years before there's no return. The timetable keeps changing, so I don't really believe it at this point. Trump didn't want to join the Paris Accord because it would destroy our economy. I mean, we'd have to start paying right away, where some places, like China and Russia, wouldn't start paying for another 10 years. It would pretty much destroy our economy because we'd also be paying a huge amount. Trump says Biden's plan for the economy is AOC plus 3. I mean, well, he did have her Green New Deal on his website until the vice presidential debate. So it pretty much was, that deal. Biden is now interrupting Trump with false and wrong. Biden is getting super heated at this point and losing his ability to keep sentences going. Trump claims Biden is against fracking totally, and Biden got heated, almost yelling at the claim, and said to show the proof. Trump says he will release that tomorrow, and we actually have that. Let's see, where is it? Down here it is. There's the video of it where he said he would completely get rid of fracking. So Trump came up on his promises there, right? He posted the video. What can I say? Biden wants to eliminate the oil industry completely. He says he wants to transition it to cleaner resources. I'm sorry, Biden, but you can't do that in 4 years. That's just statistically impossible. You would, if you're basically then just saying you're going to destroy the oil industry and then everyone has to try to compensate on top of that. You're then saying that every single businesses would have to change their entire infrastructure. You're saying we have to change the infrastructure of entire cities to then accommodate this. You can't do that. You can't do that in 4 years. That's statistically impossible. Biden says he wants to have a net zero emission, which I'm pretty sure is also impossible because I don't think you can really have a net zero emission. Maybe if, maybe you can, but it's not going to happen in your 4 years. That's for sure. And you're probably going to have more just like, you're still going to have emissions. You're always going to have emissions. So you're always going to have to try to keep countering it. Like, in order to make these solar panels, you're going to have to mine and and get all these materials. You can't just make them out of thin air like you seem to believe. In order to then get to that point, we would have to use oil. We have to use the oil industry. We have to use all this stuff in order to get to that point. But you don't seem to understand that. You're just like, nah, we'll just completely eliminate the oil industry. Man, we'll just do that. It's like, what? Are you actively trying to destroy this country then with these policies? Because that's what it's starting to sound like. All right, we'll go into the final thoughts then. Trump kind of let Biden talk. Biden, by the end, wouldn't let Trump and kept interrupting him. He was going, false, wrong, you're not correct, Trump. It's like, dude, he's not interrupting you, man. You're looking like a fool at this point, Biden. Welker kept interrupting Trump and never did Biden. At least her questions were for both candidates, and she would pressure Biden at least a little bit, so I'll give her that. But there was no follow-ups for Biden, but Walker would just hard pressure Trump, like really, really hard pressure Trump. The only time that Welker really pressured Biden was on the oil industry issue, because that was just way out there, way out there as something radical. Welker either couldn't or was unwilling or incompetent to actually press Biden. Biden just made a bunch of empty promises. Most wouldn't be followed up with any stats or facts, but just promises. And at this point, we can't just rely on promises, but those actions on those promises. in which Joe had 47 years to make a substantial impact for the better and chose not to. So, in conclusion, it's a bunch of empty promises from Joe Biden. That's pretty much my honest take on the debate. Some criticism for Trump, I guess. There was a few things that I thought were just kind of a little off, with the kids and the 500 kids, At one point, Trump was just like, it's whatever. It's like, you could be a little bit more, emotional on that matter, try to give people a little bit more hope on these children at the very least, but I mean, that's Trump. He's brash and a bit rude and blunt. I'll say it very much. He's pretty blunt. Other than that, then, I mean, Trump he would let Biden talk. He never interrupted him. He knew not to interrupt in this time. I mean, I think he was taking the advice of pretty much everybody that was saying from the first debate that was just a complete mess. So I guess, I mean, we'll see what happens with the election now. That was the last president debate. So I'll leave it there. I'll have one more video coming up on the updated information of Hunter Biden email, Joe Biden email scandal, and we'll get into that. So I will see you then. Have a good one.